In What If Captain Carter Fought the Hydra Stomper, the 5th episode of the 2nd season, things get pretty feisty. We're back with Captain Carter and Natasha Romanoff, fresh from beating Ultron and saving the multiverse. They're snooping around on a cargo ship where they stumble upon something big. It's hinted that it's good old Steve Rogers, and boy do we get answers. Furthermore, the episode introduces Wanda Merlin, a mysterious but intriguing character from Marvel's Earth 1602. So without further ado, let's get this party started. But before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
Whoa, Peggy.
What if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper? The Watcher, played by Jeffrey Wright, pops in as usual. He's not usually into sequels, but he makes an exception for Captain Carter. It takes us back to the cargo ship where Captain Carter and Natasha are busting open a crate they were guarding from pirates. Inside, surprise, surprise, it's the Hydra Stomper suit they made for Steve Rogers. And Steve's in it, but it's not a happy reunion. The suit goes rogue, attacking them. When the mask lifts for a second, Peggy sees Steve, who looks the same as back in World War II. He's pretty much the same good-looking Brooklyn boy, but he's got a beard and there's no memory of their past. Of course, Miss Peggy is still in love and cannot help her feelings, but from the looks of it, things do not look good for any of them. Steve attacks Peggy and Natasha, and they somehow manage to find cover, but Steve disappears into the night. Peggy Carter is steaming mad at Nick Fury for keeping the whole Steve and the Hydra Stomper things under wraps, especially after telling her Steve was a goner. Fury ends up giving her the old from a certain point of view spiel. Despite the rumors of the Hydra Stomper being alive and kicking, Fury didn't think it was necessary to fill in Peggy, who, mind you, has a deep history with Steve. Plus, this suit's been linked to some serious terrorist action over the years. Natasha's on Fury's side and hints that the Red Room might be mixed up in Steve's transformation from a hero to a most wanted criminal. What's the Red Room? Well, it's the only place where widows like Natasha are trained to become master assassins. Fury dishes out some intel about the Hydra Stomper's supposed next move and tries to bench Peggy for the mission. Peggy was clearly hurt. Both Natasha and Fury knew that Steve was back, more or less, but they chose to keep it a secret from him. Natasha's defense was that she did not want Peggy to have her heart broken twice, but Peggy, however, was having none of it and totally ignored anything they had to say. Bucky Barnes, the old pal of Steve Rogers, who we know as the Winter Soldier in the MCU, hung up his hero boots when Steve was thought to be dead. The guy's now the Secretary of State, and a pretty chill one at that. If he's as old as Steve, he's seriously rocking it for someone nearly a century old. Then, Buck Rumlow and his crew crashes a meeting Bucky's having with the World Security Council. They're all, hey, your life's in danger, but Bucky's like, nah, I got this. Kind of forgetting he's not exactly a spring chicken anymore, and he doesn't even know that his old friend has become the world's most dangerous killer. But then Steve crashes the party, literally, through a window in his Hydra Stomper suit. As they're hustling Bucky out, Peggy shouts that Steve's the guy in the suit. This news makes Bucky pause for a sec. He reveals that Howard Stark did some tinkering with the suit's power core after the war. This gives Peggy a glimmer of hope. When Steve smashes into the emergency stairwell, Peggy's ready. She lunges at him, dragging him down and out into the lobby, getting him away from Bucky. However, Steve isn't down for long. He tries another attack from the outside building, but who's there? Natasha in a S.H.I.E.L.D.'s jet. With Fury's orders to take Steve down, even if it means using deadly force. I mean, the man just attacked a top-notch U.S. official, so anyway, Steve corners Bucky in a hallway and Natasha's ready to pull the trigger through the window, but Bucky's right in her line of fire, making her hesitate. Fury calls Natasha off before she can make a move. Bucky then tries to reason with Steve, but that's a no-go. Good thing it buys time for Peggy to catch up and jump into the fray. Steve's not in the mood for chit-chat with old flames and friends, though. He busts through several floors of the building, taking the fight into the air. That's where Peggy knocks him out cold, but they're way up high, and now they're both plummeting down to earth at a scary speed. Natasha swoops in her Quinjet and saves Peggy and Steve, taking them to a hidden island in Scotland, totally off S.H.I.E.L.D.'s grid. Once there, Natasha fills Peggy in. The Hydra Stomper suit has been keeping Steve looking young, but it's also what's keeping him alive, and every time the suit powers up, Steve's chance of surviving plummets. Natasha thinks they should call Tony Stark or Bruce Banner for help. Peggy's not into that idea. She thinks they don't have the luxury of time, especially with the whole world now in high alert for the Hydra Stomper. Peggy's got another plan, and although it's a bit out there, she wants to go for it. What's the plan? Well, she wants to head straight to the Red Room with Steve because she thinks they might have a solution there, and let me tell you, that was kinda true, but not in the way Peggy expected. Natasha's not rightly and totally against it, and they couldn't find the Red Room because its location is so top secret. No one knows where it is. Luckily, Steve wakes up just in time from his reboot and seems ready to guide them there. At this point, Steve seems to be in his old self, no murderous vibe and all that. Natasha's first instinct is to take him out. Peggy, though, she's got heart eyes and can't quite see the danger. Turns out, it's actually Steve, not the emotionless killing machine they've been dealing with. Steve leads them to a creepy, deserted military base in Sokovia, which used to be a KGB training camp and is now the Red Room's HQ. The place is eerie, like a ghost town, but designed to look like a classic American suburb. There are these weird animatronics popping out, spitting out super unnatural all-American greetings. It's bizarre. Why the animatronics, though? Back in the Agent Carter series, they showed the early Black Widow program where they trained operatives to mimic American accents and mannerisms using stuff like Disney's Snow White. But if this town was for training KGB agents, including more than just the Black Widows, the animatronics doesn't make much sense. And if it was meant for large-scale training on how to infiltrate American towns, is What If suggesting the Soviets had plans for some sort of ground invasion in small-town USA, needing to know the local layouts and all? Anyway, Steve and Peggy are sharing a moment, and just as they lean in for a kiss, Peggy gets hit with a widow bite in the neck. Classic buzzkill. They were so into each other they didn't notice a horde of animatronics surrounding them at the gazebo, all set to shoot more darts. Peggy, Steve, and Natasha fight off the animatronics. Just when things get too intense, the animatronics bolt and the Red Room reveals itself floating in the sky above them. The situation further escalates when Melina Vostokov, Natasha's sort of mom, shows up with a bunch of widow agents. As should have been expected, Steve points his weapons at Peggy and Natasha. Turns out his real mission was to deliver Peggy to the Red Room, where Melina wants to study her as a super soldier. Peggy and Natasha, obviously not down for this, chose to fight. Peggy goes head-to-head with Steve while Natasha battles her mom and the other widows. The battle is pretty intense. Natasha fights the gang of widows, throwing in every skill and move she've ever learned in her life as an assassin and an avenger. On the other hand, Captain Carter goes full, well, Captain Carter to fight, or at least stop Steve. However, she's also human and gets worn out from all the battles she's fought. From World War II to her SHIELD days, she finally drops her shield, basically telling Steve to do his worst. That's enough to make Steve back off, but he doesn't stick around. He heads for the Red Room base, shooting it up as he leaves. Meanwhile, Natasha uses the chaos to her advantage. She hooks Melina's boot to a grappling hook that's also tied to the Hydra Stomper, cutting her family reunion short. The base soon comes crashing down. As for Steve's fate, well, that's probably a question for Season 3. The Watcher, our trusty narrator, hints that Peggy's story is far from over. Ending explained. Who are Wanda Merlin and Councilman Singh? At the end of the episode, Peggy gets pulled through a portal and is greeted by Councilman Jakuna Singh and Wanda Merlin. Wanda Merlin from Earth 1602 is a 17th century version of the familiar Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch, and as the name suggests, she's a variant of the legendary sorcerer Merlin. Now, this was just a cameo. She will appear as a central character in the 8th episode of the show titled What If? The Avengers assembled in 1602. The official synopsis for the episode is something like this. When Captain Carter is transported to an Elizabethan-era local that's populated by modern-day MCU figures, she'll have to uncover the cause of a temporal anomaly that's mysteriously stranded so many familiar heroes and villains in the year 1602. This concept isn't entirely new, though. Neil Gaiman, the brain behind the Sandman comics, once wrote an 8-issue series for Marvel titled Marvel 1602, where the superheroes, including Wanda, existed in the early 17th century. In these comics, Wanda is part of the witch breed mutants who face the same kind of witch hunts as in history. In Marvel 1602, Wanda isn't exactly a Merlin variant, but more of a nun with superhuman abilities. This ties back to some versions of Merlin's story where he loses his powers after breaking his vows of celibacy. The showrunners have a rich amount of Merlin's mythology to play with. The idea of Wanda using Merlin's identity in an era where women had little power is both smart and fitting. It's a way for her to assert her authority and influence, much like she tried to do in Multiverse of Madness. There's also a hint of time travel in the mix because Wanda and Councilman Singh will be recruiting Captain Carter for some 17th century action. And in the 17th century, Wanda's powers could easily be mistaken for magic, potentially leading to the creation of the Merlin legend. We've been exploring all the What If episodes in great detail and have been answering the hottest questions the show has been raising. I would suggest you check those out. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.